4.5 billion years ago, two planets formed side by side from the same cloud of gas and dust. Same size, same mass, same rocky composition. One of them developed oceans, a magnetic field, plate tectonics. Life appeared. Over billions of years, that life crawled out of the ocean, filled every continent, and eventually started building telescopes to look at its neighbor. The other planet died. Not slowly, not gracefully. It was murdered by its own geology. In a catastrophe so total that it erased almost every trace of what came before. That planet is Venus. Most people assume Mars is the planet that almost made it. Mars gets rovers, Mars gets movies, Venus gets ignored, and that's a mistake. NASA climate modeling suggests Venus had a shallow liquid water ocean and stable surface temperatures for up to 2 billion years. A separate study pushed that to 3 billion years. Oceans, clouds, maybe rain. On Venus, Mars lost its habitability around 3.5 billion years ago when its magnetic field collapsed. Venus may have still had liquid water a billion years after that. Earth's real twin was never Mars. It was Venus. Nobody talks about it because of what Venus became. The usual explanation goes as follows. Venus is closer to the Sun. It got too hot, the water evaporated. But that's incomplete, and it misses the most important part. Venus didn't die from sunlight. It died from volcanoes. About 700 million years ago, massive volcanic eruptions, possibly all firing at once, flooded the surface with magma. That magma released enormous amounts of carbon dioxide. As the lava cooled and solidified on top, it created a seal that prevented the gas from ever being reabsorbed. The CO2 built up. The oceans began to evaporate. Water vapor is itself a greenhouse gas, so the evaporation made the heating worse, which caused more evaporation, which made it worse again. A runaway greenhouse effect. In geological terms, Venus suffocated itself almost overnight. The same thing has almost happened on Earth. The Siberian Traps eruption, 250 million years ago, released enough greenhouse gas to kill 90% of all species. The planet nearly tipped itself into the same runaway cycle. What's the difference, you might say? On Earth, the volcanoes erupted sequentially. On Venus, they appear to have erupted simultaneously. That's the margin. Not distance from the Sun, but timing and luck. That event didn't just change the climate. It erased the planet's geological history. 85% of Venus's craters are in pristine condition. The surface is somewhere between 300 and 700 million years old. Dinosaurs walked on Earth before Venus's current surface existed. Whatever Venus looked like before, its continents, its coastlines, its ocean floors, all of it is gone, buried under lava. The surface temperature is 465 degrees Celsius. That's hotter than Mercury, even though Mercury is closer to the Sun. It's hot enough to melt lead. The atmospheric pressure is 92 times that of Earth's, equivalent to being 900 meters underwater. The clouds are sulfuric acid. It rains on Venus. Sulfuric acid with pH of roughly negative 1.2, the most corrosive rain in the solar system. And it never reaches the ground. The surface is so hot that the acid evaporates at 30 kilometers altitude. A permanent rain cycle where nothing ever lands. On the mountains, Venus has mountains taller than Everest, it snows metal. Lead sulfide and bismuth sulfide vaporize in the heat of the lowlands, rise through the atmosphere, and condense on the cooler peaks as a thin metallic frost. The planet spins backwards, retrograde, or clockwise when viewed from above. One rotation takes 243 Earth days. One orbit takes 225 days. A day on Venus is longer than its year. The sun rises in the west and sets in the east. This is the planet that used to have oceans. Between 1961 and 1984, the Soviet Union sent 16 probes to Venus. 10 reached the surface. The longest any survived was 127 minutes. Venera 13 was designed to last 32 minutes. It lasted 127 in 457-degree heat and 89 atmospheres of pressure. It transmitted the first color photographs of another planet's surface and the first audio recording from another world. Venusian wind, the lander hitting the ground, a drill boring into rock. The photographs show fractured basalt slabs under a dim orange-yellow sky. No erosion from water, just rock, heat, and acid. Venera 14 landed a few days later. It carried the surface compressibility tester, a spring-loaded arm designed to press against the ground. When the arm deployed, it landed directly on the camera's ejected lens cap. The probe measured the compressibility of its own lens cap instead of Venus's surface. That's the most expensive lens cap measurement in the history of space exploration. No spacecraft has landed on Venus since 1985. Those photographs are still the only direct images we have. I want to be careful here, because it will be easy to overstate what we know. About 50 kilometers above the hellish surface, there's a zone where conditions are surprisingly familiar. Temperature between 0 and 50 degrees Celsius. Pressure roughly 1 atmosphere. NASA has studied a concept for crewed airships floating in this zone, called HAVOC, the closest thing to Earth-like conditions anywhere else in the solar system. Some astrobiologists have proposed that if life ever existed on Venus's surface during those billions of habitable years, it may have migrated upward into the clouds as conditions worsened. There's one piece of data that keeps this question open. Dark streaks in Venus's upper atmosphere absorb ultraviolet light. Nobody can fully explain them. The leading candidates are particles, ice crystals, or iron chloride. But sulfur compounds in the atmosphere could provide microbes with a chemical coating that would protect them from acid, and that coating would absorb UV light in exactly the pattern observed. The Venera probes detected particles in the lower atmosphere about a micron in length, roughly the size of a bacterium. Is it life? Probably not, but nobody has ruled it out. And we haven't had a probe in Venus's atmosphere for 40 years. And that's about to change. NASA's DAVINCI mission is targeting a December 2030 launch, the first probe to enter Venus's atmosphere since 1985. It will sample the chemistry from cloud tops to surface and take the first photographs of Venus's terrain in over 40 years. Even the parachute had to be redesigned. A normal nylon would dissolve in the sulfuric acid, so DAVINCI uses a material that's acid resistant and 5 times stronger than steel. ESA's Envision is planned for late 2031. NASA's Veritas is aiming for the same window. 3 missions to Venus in 1 decade, after 40 years of nothing. Both NASA missions face budget threats. Whether they fly depends on decisions being made right now. If they do fly, they'll be visiting a world that used to look like ours. A world that had oceans and clouds and maybe coastlines. A world that died not from bad luck in its orbit, but from geological event that Earth has narrowly survived more than once. Venus isn't a cautionary tale about being too close to the sun. It's a cautionary tale about what can happen to a habitable world when its geology turns against it. If this one was worth your time, a like genuinely helps the channel grow. Subscribe if you want more of these. Thanks for watching. Clear skies.